Good afternoon, everyone. So let us start our class. And today, I informed you earlier that I will be starting Tintern Abbey by William Wordsworth. Now, I'll be doing with you three poems, one by William Wordsworth, which I'm going to start today. And the next one is by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, that is Kubla Khan. And the last one would be Robert Browning's poem, My Last Duchess. So these are the three poems that I'll be reading with you. So let me begin with by reminding you that the last poem that we had read offline and also online, that is Thomas Gray's The Elegy. Now you saw how Thomas Gray's elegy was actually, it could be said as a kind of a beginning of the kind of an anticipation of the Romantic movement in English poetry. And Thomas Gray, as you know, he is regarded as a pre-Romantic poet. So the Romantic movement of the early 19th century, it is in reality a kind of a continuation of the uh, Romantic, uh, you know, uh, the pre-Romantic poets. As we saw in Gray, there were other poets also. Now, so in his poem, we saw how the power of imagination could be used to write poetry. And his successors, the Romantics, it begins with William Blake. You have William Blake's The Lamb and the Tiger. And then there are the three great stalwarts of Romantic poetry, Wordsworth, Coleridge, and then, of course, there are Robert Southey, Keats, Shelley, Byron. So the second group of Romantic poets. So with them, you will find that there is a kind of a shift to the sphere of feeling and imagination. So feeling and imagination are given priority in writing poetry, and they look at the world, these poets, that is, they look at the world with the eye of imagination, and then they try to penetrate below the surface and to understand the essential reality beneath what Wordsworth would go on to describe as the wisdom and spirit of the universe. So as you know, that Wordsworth had written a preface to the lyrical ballads, and there he had enunciated uh, his theory about poetry, and how he had defined poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So we have to look towards William Wordsworth, and let us look at uh, Wordsworth the man and Wordsworth the poet before moving on to Tintern Abbey. Wordsworth had a very long life. He was born in the year 1770 and he passed away in the year 1850, so he was 80 years old. And you will find that some of the finest poems on nature in the English language, they have been written by William Wordsworth. And he was one of the pioneers of the English Romantic movement. And he was at first enthused by the French Revolution, and with his friend Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he published the Lyrical Ballads in 1798, and that book, it marks the beginning of a new trend in English poetry. And the preface that I have mentioned, which Wordsworth wrote, to the second edition of the Lyrical Ballads in 1800, that is regarded as the literary manifesto of the Romantic movement. Now, Wordsworth's great poems, of course, are some of them are, of course, Tintern Abbey is one of them. Then Michael, Ode on Intimations of Immortality, the Prelude, which is his autobiographical poem, Ode to Duty, and there are a number of short lyrics. The Lucy poems are there, the Solitary Reaper, Daffodils, the Leech Gatherer, Resolution and Independence, these are there. So he had written a number of poems, quite a long collection of poems. So Wordsworth is really regarded as somewhat the pioneer of Romantic poetry as such. Now, regarding this poem, Tintern Abbey, it is actually the poem, that is, it is the title Tintern Abbey. It is the shortened title of the poem, lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of the Wye during a tour, and that is actually the title of the poem. It's quite a long title, as you can see. And this poem was actually composed and it was published in 1798. And you can observe in the poem two of the basic creeds which Wordsworth had enunciated in his preface to the Lyrical Ballads. And these are that poetry has its origin in emotion recollected in tranquility. That is one basic creed that Wordsworth had enunciated. And the second one, as I had already told you, that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So these two basic creeds you can observe in this particular poem, Tintern Abbey. Now, regarding the poem, what is the significance of the title, the full title of the poem? Now, you can see that the title of the poem is Revisiting. The word revisiting is there. And as you can see, I will just share the screen with you. So here is the poem, composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of the Wye during a tour, July 13, 1798. This is the full title of the poem. And the emphasis should be on the word revisiting. So it means that the poem was composed on his revisiting Tintern Abbey that stood on the banks of the River Wye after a lapse of 5 years. So it means that he had visited Tintern Abbey back in 1793. So after 5 years, he is revisiting. He is going there again. And the poem is therefore a recapitulation of the emotions that Wordsworth had experienced on his earlier visit to the place. So what he had experienced, that is a kind of a recapitulation. He's thinking about those emotions. And these recollected emotions give rise to fresh feelings of joy that are spontaneously flowing through the poem, throughout the poem. So the poem is, in short, it can be said, it is an expression of Wordsworth's thoughts and feelings in the presence of a remembered scene that had once been visited. This is like that. Now there is, you can see here that there is a short note here, what Wordsworth said about this poem. No poem of mine was composed under circumstances more pleasant for me to remember than this. I began it upon leaving Tintern after crossing the Wye, and concluded it just as I was entering Bristol in the evening, after a ramble of 4 or 5 days, with my sister. Not a line of it was altered, and not any part of it written down till I reached Bristol. So Wordsworth had given this note in 1843, and the poem was printed as a last item in Lyrical Ballads. So long after composing the poem and its publication, Wordsworth had given this note. And of course, as you can see here, Wordsworth had first visited the Wye Valley and the ruins of Tintern Abbey in Monmouthshire, while on a solitary walking tour in August 1793, when he was 23 years old. And the puzzling difference between the present landscape and the remembered picture of the mind gives rise to an intricately organized meditation in which the poet reviews his past, evaluates the present, and through his sister as the intermediary, anticipates the future. He ends by rounding back quietly on the scene that has been his point of departure. So this is the note that we get here, and with this, as you can understand, it is this poem is quite important in tracing Wordsworth's, you can say, his development as a poet and some of the applications of some of the theories of poetry that he had presented in the Lyrical Ballads, rather in the preface to the Lyrical Ballads. So Tintern Abbey is a kind of a spiritual autobiography, and Wordsworth's recollection of some of the pleasures enjoyed during an earlier visit. So an earlier visit was kind of, it can be seen here, and the harmony that he experienced in his present visit. So he feels that there would be a kind of a similar joyous experience in the future, and therefore this poem is kind of, it fits into an autobiographical framework. So the spiritual growth of the poet, his development in the poem, and that is why it is called a spiritual autobiography. And you will find there are 3 other poems which are similar to this poem, Tintern Abbey, and that is Ode on Intimations of Immortality, Ode to Duty, and the Prelude. So among these 4 poems, Tintern Abbey is the first one. So Tintern Abbey falls within the character of meditative poetry, and which is philosophical in intent, and it is a kind of a circular, it has a circular structure, and the poem begins and it ends with an invocation to nature. So the last stanza, it refers to the woods, the cliffs, and the green pastoral farms, and that is an echo of the opening stanza. So it has a kind of a circular frame of reference. So let us move on to the poem itself, and let us read this poem. 5 years have passed, 5 summers with the length of 5 long winters. And again I hear these waters rolling from their mountain springs with a soft inland murmur. So he's saying that 5 years have passed, 5 summers. So with the length of 5 long winters. So we understand that this is Wordsworth's second visit, because he had specifically stated in the title the word revisiting. So he had visited this place earlier, back in August 1793. And between his first visit and his second visit, 5 years have passed. And he can hear the rolling of the waters as he approaches the place. And these are the sounds of the mountain springs which are falling with a soft inland murmur. So as we can see, the peaceful nature of this place, the calm and quiet nature of this place is emphasized here. Once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs that on a wild secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion. So obviously, as we can see, and there is the reference to the steep and lofty cliffs, the high cliffs that are there all around him. That is the locality of this Wye Valley. He is describing this place, and this is a place which is a secluded place, that is, it is segregated. It is a wild place where not many people would live there, and it is a quiet and calm place. And the general scene of this place would impress people. So obviously the scene would impress thoughts of more deep seclusion. So as you can see here that the mountain springs, they suggest freshness, and they flow with a soft inland murmur. There is the suggestion of harmony and gentleness, while the steep and lofty cliffs that connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky suggest the link between the peaceful landscape below and the profounder quiet of the mountains above. So the harmony in nature that can be seen here, that can be observed here, it sort of infuses harmony in the mind of the poet. So Wordsworth is in perfect communion with nature here, and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. So that is what he is saying, that the landscape and the sky, they are connected together with a kind of a bond, and nature is harmonious in all her aspects. So nature's harmony can be noticed here. The day is come when I again repose here under this dark sycamore and view these plots of cottage ground, these orchard tufts. So here is the description of the scene here, and one would notice nature's harmony in color, the different colors of nature. So the orchard tufts with their unripe fruits would look green, and they would be lost in the surrounding groves and copses, which are also green in color. So the color green, it is associated with the springtime freshness, the fresh nature of the you know, trees and grass and all that during spring. So Wordsworth is taking rest under this dark sycamore tree. It is a kind of a tree. He had visited this place 5 years earlier, and he had taken shelter under this big tree, and he does that now. So as he looks around him, he looks at the cottage ground, the orchard tufts, which at this season with their unripe fruits are clad in one green hue. So as he sees that everything is submerged in greenery and lose themselves mid groves and copses. So everything is kind of blended in. Nature is all resplendent in its greenery and lose themselves mid groves and copses. So the color green is predominant here. Once again I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of sporty wood run wild. So here he is saying that the hedgerows that are described, they can be hedgerows. Actually, the greenery has run wild here, and these pastoral farms green to the very door. So uh, in this season, everything is full of greenery, and wreaths of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees. So most probably there is also how Wordsworth describes the fusion of the world of human beings, because he refers to the cottages and pastoral farms of some dwellers, and those the houses where they're staying, and the wreaths of smoke that are coming out from the chimneys. So some people are living there, but they are in absolute harmony with nature as such. So here, among the sent up in silence from among the trees, with some uncertain notice as might seem of vagrant dwellers. So here, as you can see, uh, there are some people, some nomadic people, like people who move from one place to another in the houseless woods, or of some hermit's cave, whereby his fire the hermit sits alone. Hermit means a kind of a religious person, a person who lives alone, who has left society and is living alone in a cave, and there he has built a fire and he is sitting there alone. So the description is of these people who are probably vagabonds or vagrants. They have temporarily set up a kind of a uh, dwelling place here, and the entire place is full of greenery. So the first stanza, as you can see here, it is a description of this wonderful place which Wordsworth is revisiting. Wordsworth is looking at the area with fond remembrance. So this is the landscape of Tintern Abbey, and the world of nature, that is the world of the lofty cliffs and mountain springs, they are connected with the quiet of the sky, and the sky is the symbol of the divine spirit. So the landscape of Tintern Abbey, it reveals to the poet the unity that is prevailing in the universe, and we would be talking about Wordsworth's pantheism, which is a kind of a theory which I would talk about later as we uh, go on reading this poem. So let us move on to the next stanza and see what the poet is saying here. These beauteous forms, through a long absence, have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye. So Wordsworth is saying that these beauteous forms, beauteous, this word is used in the sense of harmony. So the forms are non forms of nature. They are not only beautiful to the eye, but they are harmonious in themselves, and they are capable of inducing harmony in others. So he's saying they are not only beautiful, but they inspire a sense of beauty. They inspire a sense of beauty in others. And what is he saying here? That these beauteous forms have soothed him in his hours of loneliness and weariness. So in the next lines, but oft in lonely rooms and mid the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them in hours of weariness sensations sweet. So he's saying that I have not been blind. So I have not been blind to the beauty of this landscape, to the beauty and the harmony of this landscape, but these 5 years when I have been absent from this place, I have been living in the city of London in lonely rooms, that is, he was lonely, there was no one with him, and mid the din, that is, amidst the din and bustle of the towns and cities, I have owed to them in hours of weariness sensations sweet. So in the midst of the noise of the towns and cities, in his hours of loneliness and weariness, he had looked back in his imagination to this place. He had remembered about this place. So sensations sweet. This means that harmony on the plane of the senses. So a kind of a harmonious feeling that he felt when he remembered this scene. And next he says, felt in the blood and felt along the heart. So felt in the blood and felt along the heart. So harmony on the plane of the emotions. So harmony on the plane of the thoughts. And as if it had become interfused within his blood with every heartbeat that he had had. So this picture of the beautiful Tintern Valley, it had remained in his heart, and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration. So this picture, as he is saying, it had passed into his purer mind, that is, within his heart, and as we can see, it has given him a kind of a sensual, emotional, and mental harmony. So he is at peace within, and he is able to perform all kinds of acts of kindness and love. So he is saying that it has restored me to a state of tranquility, a state of calmness during the times when I had been lonely and alone. Feelings too of unremembered pleasure. So he feels that during this time, these 5 years, the feeling had gone inside and it had remained there, and some pleasures of joy perhaps he has forgotten, but they have remained in his heart, deep within. Such perhaps as have no slight or trivial influence on that best portion of a good man's life, his little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and of love. So here he means to say that uh, he is at peace within, and he is able to perform spontaneous acts of kindness and love. So he is uh, grateful towards nature, and that is what he feels here. So the best portion of a good man's life. So acts of kindness, acts of love towards his neighbors, towards other people, that have been possible because nature had given him this calmness, this you can say joy within his heart, that had made him uh, kind of full of tranquility, and he had always he had sought restoration or sustenance from these pictures. Nor less, I trust, to them I may have owed another gift of aspect more sublime. So he's saying that uh, he has also gained some other things from nature, from the beauty of nature, and that is a thing that is even more sublime, that blessed mood in which the burthen of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened. So he's saying that the state of mystical trance that the poet has attained as a result of total inner harmony infused in him by nature, it has led him to feel that this world is no more a burden, and he is able to perceive order and coherence within it. So with the power of his imagination, he is able to penetrate into the core of existence, to discover the infinite pattern within. And as we can see, so he is saying that this is the blessed mood, the gift that he has received from nature. And burthen means burden. So the mystery of life, the heavy and weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened. So this the burden of this world, that is lightened. That serene and blessed mood in which the affections gently lead us on. So a calm and blessed state of mind in which the affections gently lead us on. So the sense of harmony and love, until the breath of this corporeal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul. So here he is, of course, trying to say that one might attain a kind of a peaceful a state of total bliss, that serene and blessed mood, where this corporeal means physical, this physical existence, that would uh, that would be sublimated, and the breath of this corporeal frame, the motion of the human blood, everything will be perhaps suspended for a little while. And what would happen? We are laid asleep in body. Our bodies would temporarily be inert, and our soul would take over. So the soul would be active, while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. So obviously, we, as Wordsworth says here, with the power of imagination, he would be able to penetrate into the core of existence and discover the infinite pattern, the divine pattern within. And this is what he means when he says that we see into the life of things. We would be able to see into the inner core of beings, with our body being suspended, as it were. Of course, the body is there, but it is temporarily, its importance is sort of lessened. So the deep power of joy, an eye made quiet by the power of harmony, and the deep power of joy. Joy and harmony would work together and give the poet, it would give the poet or any person the power to see beyond this earthly burden of life, that is. So this is the, you can say, Wordsworth, how he looks beyond the superficial beauty of nature. He looks beyond it and he finds something deeper within it. It's not just nature that is there before him, and he is appreciating the beauty of nature. He is feeling very joyful when he is revisiting this place. That is not so. There is something deeper, and his inner being is responding to this place, to the quietness, the calm and quiet nature of this place, and how the harmony of nature blends in with the inner harmony of the soul. That is what he's trying to say here. Now in the next stanza, it is a short stanza. If this be but a vain belief, yet, oh, how oft in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful star unprofitable and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart. So he's saying that as if there is a doubt that is arising in his mind regarding nature's gifts to him. He feels that if it is a vain belief means useless, that this is not true. But still, he is recalling the times when in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, so he had spent a number of days, months, years in a state of joyless, in a joyless state, when the fretful star of unprofitable and the fever of the world, fretful star, unprofitable, of course, the burden of life, as he was referring to, and the anxious existence of living our day-to-day lives, the anxiety that is there. So as we can see here, that he says the fever of the world, and this is an unprofitable existence that he had led in the city. As he had said, he was living a solitary life, and it was a kind of an unprofitable existence. It did not gain anything there. So that was something that he wanted to surmount. Now, as we can see here, that he is referring to this time, to the time that he had spent in London, and he is referring to this time as a kind of fever, so a kind of a disease that he had undergone, have hung upon the beatings of my heart. So his heart was heavy with the kind of existence that he was leading away from nature. How oft in spirit have I turned to thee, O sylvan, why thou wanderer through the woods? How often has my spirit turned to thee? So he's referring to the Wye river. So in spiritually, not that is mentally, not physically, of course, because you could not go back to the Wye Valley before this time. For 5 years he had lived an unprofitable life, as he says. So mentally he had gone back to this scene. So emotion recollected in tranquility. That is what he is referring to now. So the memory of those beautiful scenes came back to him in his mind. So we ourselves, if we visit a beautiful place, a beautiful tourist spot, even after years, we remember the place and we think fondly of the natural beauty, the natural scenery of the place. So with Wordsworth, it is the same thing. With a nature lover like Wordsworth, it is even more, something even more, not just the natural beauty, but something deeper. So sylvan means green, sylvan Y. So thou wanderer through the woods. How often has my spirit turned to thee? So during this time, actually, as we can see here, that uh, Wordsworth is referring to how the beautiful scene, has kind of inspired him. So the green woods, that the Wye River, it flows through the green woods or the forest kind of this place, and the river, obviously, uh, it has uh, imprinted on his mind and the whole place beautiful memories. So when I was sad, when I was feeling very much alone, I had turned to you. My spirit turned to thee, and you have resuscitated me, re-energized me. So that is the meaning here. And the excitement, how he felt when he remembers the Sylvan Y during the periods of stress and strain. So let us stop here with this particular stanza. This is the third stanza of the poem. And as you have seen here, how Wordsworth is recollecting his visit to the Wye Valley, to this place called Tintern Abbey, and how he is very much excited to go back to this place, and the kind of sustenance that he had received from this place, from the recollection of the memories of this place during his times of, loneliness, and when he was sad and he was feeling very down. So the therapeutic, the medicinal, or you can say the inspiring nature, the quality, the essential inspiring quality of nature, that is very much in evidence here, as we can see here through this particular poem. And later on, as we will proceed, you will see how Wordsworth talks about. Wordsworth will uh, tell us in detail about his experiences and how this pantheism, as we call it, Wordsworth's pantheism, that is his vision of a triad, the triad of man, nature, and God. So the three things are interconnected, the connection between man, nature, and God that he had perceived in nature. So that would be that kind of theory which you find in Wordsworth's poetry, that would be very much in evidence in this poem, and that would come later on. We have already seen how he's saying we see into the life of things. So the inner vision, the inner eye opens, and the beauty of the Wye Valley, it somehow means something more to him, not just the beauty of nature, as I was saying. It means something more, something deeper, something very much that is that has this lovely feeling, this feeling of tranquility, feeling of calmness that would allow him to surmount all the difficult times. So this is the first part of the poem, the first three stanzas that we have done today, and I'll continue with the poem in my next class.